Minister Brаже, thank you so much for joining us. From what we know right now, Ukraine is not going to be offered membership at the NATO summit happening this week in Washington. What can be done to assure Ukraine of its path to NATO, and what are the Baltic states doing to push for its membership?
The decision about Ukraine becoming a member of NATO was already made in 2008 at the summit, where it says very clearly that Ukraine and Georgia will become members of NATO. Of course, at the time of war with Russia's aggression, the main aim of all the NATO allies is to provide the necessary assistance to Ukraine to ensure that at the end of the war there is independent Ukraine that still wants to join NATO. So that is what we are doing, and that will be also a very important part of the decision-making package at the summit. There is part that is about deterrence and defense, which is allies' own capabilities, defense spending, defense industry pledge. Then there will be package on the help to Ukraine, which will consist both on strengthening NATO's coordination with regard to the aid it provides, so more military capabilities and faster, but also clearly a support pledge to continue providing aid at the same level of about 40 billion a year, so that Ukraine knows that it will have that support. And that's also an important message of deterrence to Russia, that if Mr. Whoever, Butcher in the Kremlin, thought that he will get to the time where the West is tired, that's not going to happen. And these packages, this decision-making will support that. And then, of course, the political sort of framing on how Ukraine advances on its membership path. And we all know that Ukraine, in terms of interoperability, in terms of capability of its military forces, is advancing very well with regard to NATO standards, procurement, and there is a whole set of stuff that needs to be done. And that will be recognized in the summit declaration.
Today, as you know, Russia hit Ukraine with a mass rocket attack. Over 30 people were killed. They struck the main children's hospital in Kyiv. How should that affect the way that NATO member state leaders who are gathering at the summit are thinking about Ukraine?
Well, the Butcher in Kremlin doesn't care. He just hits whatever. They don't care whether it's children's hospital, cancer hospital. They just do what they want. So on Ukrainian side, we need to provide more air defenses, but we also need to lift all the restrictions so Ukraine can actually hit legitimate military targets on Russia's territory, because that is covered by international law, by the self-defense clause in the UN Charter, Article 51. And in that respect, Ukraine needs long-range fires, precision strike, targeting, and so on and so forth. So that all needs to be provided to Ukraine to avoid situations like this. But with regard to Butcher and Kremlin, it's not the first time they have done it, and they will continue doing it. But they will be accountable. There will be a moment that they will be responsible for all these crimes.
Are there significant disagreements between Western European members and newer members of NATO about Ukrainian membership and about how to deter Russia?
Well, the new member, you mean North Macedonia or Montenegro?
Well,
or
newer going back a few more years.
Like which years?
Oh, I mean, well, let's say the members in Central and Eastern Europe, I guess,
Okay.
if that's the term.
No, there is not. But of course, we have a much sharper sense and awareness on a number of issues, because Norway, Finland, the Baltic states, Romania, Bulgaria, we are all sort of on the northeastern, southeastern flank of the alliance. So probably our wording, the way we see things, is rather sharper than for some others. So that's our task, to explain, to convince, to sort of clearly show the way how it should be handled. And that's why when seeing that all the elements in Russia's system currently is oriented towards war, whether it's political, economic, religious, media, public, everything is about war and supporting the war, then quite clearly the ultimate objective for us is to take that into account And while putting the strategic sort of aims that, okay, we want Russia to be a peaceful country, in the interim we have to be very clear that we need to contain and constrain Russia on its own territory so that it wouldn't be able to wage the war. That's why degrading Russia's military capabilities through sanctions, that's why deterrence defense very clearly showing the ability of NATO to defend itself and demonstrating it through the mass exercises, through capabilities, through will and unity, is something that contributes to the world's security, but also helping Ukraine to fight and win.
Does Latvia feel confident that the NATO alliance would defend it in case of a Russian attack? That the Article 5 commitments will be upheld?
Sure. Yes.
Completely?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. In the past 2 years, both Finland and Sweden have joined the NATO alliance. How has that increased added the alliance's defense capabilities in case of a provocation on the border of Russia and the Baltic states?
Well, the butcher in Kremlin achieved that quite clearly with his aggression against Ukraine, because neither Finland nor Sweden, before the start of Russia's war against Ukraine, had considered joining in a near future. And that all changed, so both countries are now members of NATO and very able members. Both have high-level military capabilities, high level of support, transatlanticists, so we are very happy to have them.
What do you hope to see come out of this week's summit? What do you want to see as the end result of it?
There are important decisions on deterrence defense, as already discussed, because from the, let's say, mid-2000s policies, which was a policy of choice whether to participate in out-of-area operations, whether sending 100, 200, 500 soldiers to Afghanistan or other places, was a choice for 6 months. You send, you rotate, and that's it. Today, it's the collective defense of the territories and peoples of NATO allies, so from the first moment, from the first centimeter. And that's why the whole change of NATO's military strategy has been so important. And what it meant was literally changing the planning, changing the command structure, changing the whole situational awareness, so investment in intelligence and reconnaissance to know and understand and see what Russia is doing, to be aware, and ensuring that rapid reaction capability, which means both forces that are at higher readiness, it means capabilities of moving forces, it means supplying, logistics, resupplying, and so on and so forth. So that all has been happening. It will be confirmed also at the summit. A certain change has taken place, including on SACEUR's or Supreme Allied Commanders' powers. So there is a big change in the alliance that is continuing to happen.